Hello and welcome to my week three presentation for public finance and budgeting, the City of Slidell budget review. So as mentioned, the city I chose for my budget review was the City of Slidell. We are looking at the fiscal year 2022, which runs from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. I have decided that this particular city budget happens to be a hybrid. The reasons why I decided that is because it has elements of a line item budget, a program-based budget, and a performance-based budget. Line item budgets are commonly used, they're organized, they show accounts with expenditures, expected expenditures and revenues. Program-based budgets are organized around city programs and services, and performance-based budgets provide goals, measures, inputs, and show outputs. After I go over that, my in-depth budget review or my structure review, I will prepare some advantages and disadvantages and then let you know what my recommendations are based on what I reviewed. So the City of Slidell, as I said, has a hybrid budget. If you begin the document, it's quite long. It's about 151 pages, but it does show, the governor's priorities. He has a list to the council, and it shows what his priorities and what he intends to fund these priorities as. We continue on and goes to show all the expected revenues for the year and provide some narrative of how those revenues are going to be gathered. Moving on to the expenses, each program is given an expense section or page. So right now we're looking at the finance program section. As you can see, it starts off and it has some goals and objectives, which very much shows the kind of performance-based budgeting and lists those out for us. And then it goes on to provide a shortened list, but a list none the same of expected expenditures with line items and a brief description of the budget's highlights. So some advantages and disadvantages to this particular hybrid of a budget. I personally think that it's easy to read. The journal articles that I read suggested that some of these budgets by themselves were failures, so hybrid was recommended or quite often used. So some advantages of this hybrid is that it's easy to read and understand. It's organized. It can help with system planning because it provides you with some of the measurables and the inputs and divides these particular departments into, or the programs into different pages and budgets so that you can really look into a particular program if that's what you're interested in. It provides narratives, not just numbers and goals, and it looks like it's decision focused. Some disadvantages to this type of budgeting more seem to be on the administrative side or the information gathering for this budget. The articles that I looked at said that disadvantages of these sorts of things might be in that you have to have additional personnel to determine the outputs and reevaluate the programs as they're going along. You might also have to change systematic processes to integrate any kind of change that you need or see. One distinct thing that I thought was interesting was that if managers aren't provided the authority to implement changes right away for efficiencies that they've identified, this can be a huge disadvantage to this kind of budgeting system, and that often these kind of budgets are subject to strategic gaming, and it's not that it's intentional, but sometimes we don't have enough personnel to determine the outputs, or sometimes you're provided with insufficient measurables to report on, and you don't go looking for more because you want to continue your budgeting or your funding at the same level. So would I recommend this type of budget? Absolutely. I do find that the budget report in itself is easy to read, albeit long. and that I really enjoy that they broke it out in programs, so that if I'm interested in a particular program, I can look at that and not get bogged down in the vastness of the city. I also really enjoy their inputs and their goals and measurables and how they've tracked it from previous years and into what they're projecting for 2022. Gives me enough information on the expenditures and where they're going, and the budget highlights to where I can really get into the financial bits of it. What I do find lacking in my particular budget are good measurable outputs or highlights on those outputs. I know that you have in the structure, you have these little grid of where they are in the process, but it doesn't really tell you, is it failing? Is it succeeding? How are things going? And I would kind of like to know that as an outsider looking in and seeing how the money is being spent in the city. A list of my references, I used Ron Kluvers, Fred Lundberg, and Alfred Tatke-Hoy. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing your presentations.